The US built the modern tech world. From Silicon Valley's semiconductor boom to AI breakthroughs, America has led the way for decades. But now a challenger has emerged. China is fighting back. Washington thought it could cripple Beijing's tech ambitions with strict sanctions. But instead of falling behind, China is accelerating. It's pouring hundreds of billions into chip making, bypassing restrictions, and building a parallel tech ecosystem, one that could soon challenge America's dominance. So, will US sanctions stop China? Or is the era of American tech supremacy coming to an end? Stay with us. Because this battle isn't just about chips. It's about who controls the future of AI, quantum computing, and military technology. For decades, the US and its allies have controlled the semiconductor industry, producing over 80% of the world's advanced chips. But as China rapidly closed the gap, Washington hit back. In 2024, the US imposed its most aggressive tech sanctions ever, cutting off Beijing from the most advanced semiconductor technologies. The key restrictions include NVIDIA and AMD banned from selling China cutting-edge AI chips, like the A100 and H100. ASML prohibited from exporting extreme ultraviolet EUV lithography machines, essential for making chips under 7 nanometers. US firms barred from working with China's top chip makers, including SMIC and YMTC. Export bans on semiconductor materials and key components, limiting China's ability to build its own supply chain. The goal? Stop China from dominating AI, supercomputing, and advanced manufacturing. But here's the pain point. These sanctions haven't just hurt China. They've hit US companies hard. NVIDIA's revenue from China dropped from 21% to 13% over 2 fiscal years due to export controls. Intel and Qualcomm are lobbying Washington to loosen restrictions, fearing long-term market loss. Even Apple, a symbol of American tech dominance, had to watch Huawei launch a 7-nanometer smartphone chip, despite the US ban. So what's China doing? It's not retreating. It's going on the offensive. If Washington thought sanctions would stop China's rise, it miscalculated. Beijing saw this coming years ago. And now, it's fighting back with a massive government-backed tech revolution. Over $150 billion in direct funding for semiconductor research and production. Huawei and SMIC developed a 7-nanometer chip without ASML's EUV machines, years ahead of US expectations. China is stockpiling critical chip-making materials, buying from Japan, South Korea, and even black market US suppliers. A silicon shield strategy. China is setting up factories in friendly nations like Malaysia, Singapore, and the UAE to bypass Western restrictions. But the biggest shock? Huawei's Mate 60 Pro. In 2024, Huawei unveiled a fully Chinese-made 7-nanometer chip smartphone, defying US sanctions. It sent shockwaves through Washington and Silicon Valley. How did Huawei pull this off? Reverse engineering banned technologies. Massive investment in domestic R&D. Quiet supply chain workarounds. The pain point for the US? If China can make 7-nanometer chips now, how long before it masters 5 nanometers? Or even 3 nanometers? But this war isn't just about China and the US. The entire global tech ecosystem is changing. For decades, the world relied on a single supply chain. US designs, Taiwanese production, and European equipment. But now, China is creating its own system. BRICS nations are forming their own semiconductor alliances, reducing reliance on Western technology. China is pouring billions into Middle Eastern partnerships, securing access to key rare earth minerals. Beijing is increasing investments in Southeast Asia, setting up chip fabs in Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. And here's the pain point for Washington. If China can build a self-sufficient semiconductor industry, the US will lose leverage over global tech policy. And it's not just China. Other nations are watching. India is expanding its semiconductor industry with US backing. Japan and South Korea are balancing between US and Chinese interests. Europe is investing in its own chip production to avoid dependence on the US or China. The result? A fractured tech world, where power no longer rests solely in American hands. So can the US still win this war? The future of the global tech race hinges on a few key scenarios. Scenario 1, the US doubles down on sanctions. China speeds up innovation, forcing American companies to lose access to the world's largest semiconductor market. Scenario 2, the US loosens restrictions. Washington tries to balance national security with economic interests, but China's influence continues to grow. Scenario 3, a full-blown tech Cold War. The world splits into two separate semiconductor ecosystems, one led by the US, one dominated by China. Regardless of the outcome, one thing is clear. China is no longer playing catch-up. It's leading its own race. If you're an investor, watch China's next moves. Stocks like SMIC, Huawei, and BYD could become the new Nvidia or Intel. If you're in tech, expect disruptions. A fractured semiconductor industry means AI development, software compatibility, and hardware availability will never be the same. If you're a policymaker, this is about more than chips. It's about the future of global power. So, what do you think? Can the US stop China's tech rise? Or is Beijing already winning the semiconductor war? Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Econ Atlas for more deep dives into the biggest economic battles shaping our world. This is Econ Atlas, your map to the global economy. See you in the next one.